Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Clinton with Tough to Treat, and I'm here with my co-host, Erica Mello. Hi, Erica.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So this is podcast number 90,
Yes, it
and
is.
we just wanted to make a couple of announcements before we dive into the podcast. One is we have dates ready to start our next round of our mastermind mentoring
hmm
membership,
Yep.
which the emails are actually going to go out on Friday, January 3rd,
January
29th,
3rd,
29th, 30th.
29th.
Yeah,
29th.
sorry,
Yeah.
I should have my dates in front of me. January 29th. Erica, you want to tell us when it starts? And
Yeah, absolutely. We launched our first inaugural out last fall, and it was so successful. We wanted to do it again. So we plan on you're going to get, if you're a member of our email list, you will get these emails. If you are not a member of the list, please go into tough2treat.com. And please sign up for our email list. You'll get a Clinical Pearls PDF, and you need to verify your email. Okay, I cannot email people unless they verify it. So it's a two-step process. If you don't want to do that, just email us directly, Erica@ericamello.com or Susan@embody-pt.com. The program will start the week of February 15th. We'll start it on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. February 16th. So we are looking forward to having a wonderful group of clinicians, and it will go for roughly around 10 weeks or so, and it's fantastic. And you'll get all the details in the emails. And also, we are at podcast number 90 that Susan said. We have 10 more to go to 100. We literally need at least 11 more, probably 11 more testimonials on iTunes. So if you listen to this podcast on iTunes and you have found value there, please leave us a review or a testimonial. We would most appreciate it. It is really how we get found in the podcast world. So thank you as always. I think that's it, right, Susan?
yeah, that's it. But your
Okay.
your testimonial goes a long way. We have been found in many countries now,
Yes.
and all of that is because of your testimonials. Helps bump us up the list of where people who would not know us in any way have been able to kind of start to find us. So thank you very much for that. Our goal has always been to spread the word. So yeah, with that, we're going to head into podcast number 90. And as always, we look forward to your comments and questions. Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Clinton, and this is podcast Tough to Treat, episode number 90. I'm here with my colleague, Erica Mello.
Hi,
Hi,
Susan.
Erica.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We were just lamenting on the January weather.
Oh my God.
In Pittsburgh, it hasn't been the most beautiful of days. Lots of rain and that ugly 38 degrees. So, but anyway, we're here and we're gonna brighten up everybody's January long nights of January with another podcast. And today I'm going to be talking about a client that I had, and this is going to be a dovetail off of some neural tension, which seems to be a big theme for us. But also, it's going to combine balance and reactivity, as well as central sensitization, kinesiophobia, and all of those other things that go along with persistent pain. So I'll just hop right in. This
Okay.
client is a lovely lady who had back in August, had a terrible accident and stepped out of a doorway crooked
Oh.
and ended up with a trimalleolar fracture
Oh boy.
of her ankle. And she reported right away that she had broken bones in her lower leg and dislocated ankle. Obviously, she said, very telling, I think. When I looked down, I saw the bottom of my foot looking back at me.
Oh
And
my gosh.
this is exactly how she described it. And she said, I reached down and straightened my foot out.
Oh my God, that gives me the The shivers just listening to
Right
that.
there, that sets the tone for everything. It's like being quiet and listen to their story. Don't interrupt. I just let her kind of go with it for a while. She paused a little bit, and then she kind of, launched into, and then everything got crazy, is what she told me. She said, we raced off to the ER. She had surgery, of course, as quick as they could do it, and then she was non-weight bearing for 8 weeks. She was put into a cast. She said it was a splint cast that was wrapped, but she was definitely non-weight bearing and not allowed to come out of the splint cast for 8 weeks. So then they took her out of the splint cast and put her in a boot and started her weight bearing as tolerated and sent her to PT. And she said 2 times a week she worked on movement, um, walking, range of motion. I did all of this stuff, but I'm not where I want to be. It's like, okay, so, kind of going through my questions, it's like, what are your expectations? Like, what do you really, what does that mean to you when you tell me you're not where you want to be?
Mm.
Tell me what that means. And so we kind of had a long conversation about, I don't want to, I'm worried about my foot. I'm worried about my ankle. I don't know why I have this pain on the inside of my leg above the ankle bone, but I do. I don't feel confident. I don't feel comfortable. That was a big word she used. I don't feel confident and comfortable to return to anything other than walking around in my normal everyday life. And even with that, I'm really careful. She said, and this was the part that was a little bit sad to me. She said as she was nearing the end of her physical therapy, she felt like she had some good range of motion. She knew that she was a little bit stronger. She was able to stand on the little Bosu ball in the desk and roll it around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hold on. She could walk. She could go up and down some stairs, but she said, "I still have this pain in this one area." And near as I was ending, I was talking to the PT about it, and they said to her, "Don't worry about it. Just take an Advil."
Oh God, completely
Yeah,
dismissive of it.
I know.
They dismissed her.
Yeah,
Oh,
completely. So this is near and dear to my heart, as you know.
Oh my God.
So,
Ugh.
so she has, interestingly enough, she has a therapist in her family who uh, has a practice very much like mine and like Erica's. And she talked to her and she told her, she said, it's time to move away from that person and find a different practitioner because you're not where you need to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get you there because I'm your sister. But
Yes.
you need to, so she actually did some homework and looked and found us. And so that was great. So she came in and we had a long talk, just like we were talking about. And, so some of the things that, a couple of my other powerful questions is, the deep down in your heart of hearts, what are you, like, what are you really seriously worried about? Like, what's really, really worrying you? And she said that, what was really worrying her more than anything is that she was never going to be an active person again. And that all she was going to be able to do was just kind of walk around and do the normal stuff, like go for walks or just walk and stuff. And she said, I used to be on a spin bike and I used to do yoga and I love to go trail hiking. And I don't even know if I can go to the gym and lift a weight. And I just feel like that I'm going to go downhill with my health year after year if I, and I just like I've got this bad foot and it's always going to be a problem.
Right. Wow.
That was what she was worried about. So that was interesting. And we talked a little bit about, and even now she said going up or downstairs is still the worst. And she has so much caution with her exercises. So we kind of went through, I sent her out before I get into too much of what else we went to do, I think this is really important to pull out. I send out an inventory to people ahead of time when I'm going to see them. And especially if I have an inkling that we might be dealing with, some persistent issues. And so I sent her the central sensitization inventory, part A and B, I'm looking at it right now, the DAS questionnaire, the depression, anxiety, stress, for those who don't know that, insomnia severity index, the PCS, pain catastrophization, the PANIS, and, the Fremantle. I didn't send the Fremantle because it was her foot, and the pain self-efficacy, and the Tampa kinesiophobia scale. So what was interesting was on most of these scales, she was fine. Like even the insomnia one, I asked her, she had one night, she said, sometimes I can't sleep. And so I asked her about that, and she goes, that's because of my 16-year-old son. It just, when I worry about him, it gets to my heart, and so I don't sleep as well. So that's great. Very, very nice for her to share. Underneath the depression, anxiety, stress, it was very interesting. So this is a scale of 0 to 3. And the questions all split out between stress, anxiety, and depression, and you can kind of triangulate them. Most of she had a few ones, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ones. Most of them were zeros.
Yeah.
So, that's good. It's good to know. But the central sensitization, there was a lot of sometimes, and at least 3 or 4 oftens, and 1 always. So that goes from never, rarely, sometimes, often, always. Very heavy right in the middle with the sometimes, and skewed just tiny bit to the left with the rarelies and the nevers, but there was enough oftens and always to catch my attention. And some of the always were certain smells such as perfumes make me feel dizzy and nauseated. Isn't that interesting, right?
Yeah.
And when I'm going to tell you this little piece of the story here in a minute, that'll kind of bring it in. I have muscle tension in my neck and shoulders often. And stress makes my physical symptoms get worse. So I asked her about that. And I said, what physical symptoms do you mean? I did not just assume it was her foot or ankle. And she said, all of them, the shoulder stuff that I carry, and my foot. Definitely the pain in my leg gets worse. She goes, and I know that it happened, but until I filled this out, I just didn't connect it.
It's interesting because
goes on in people's brains. But it's not tangible until they start really having to kind of think about it. And then one of her other offers was my muscles feel stiff and achy. So that was really very, very interesting. And then tons of sometimes in there. Yeah, sometimes this happens. On the inventory part B, she definitely checked off a yes on anxiety and panic attacks and depression. And she said that most of the time those are really under control, but she's noticed they're worse since her accident. Here's the story she told me before we get into this other one, because I think it's really telling. She said, my son said that, and she said he's very strong, he's got great friends, and they go snowboarding. There's a park, outside of Pittsburgh where there's enough snow to do, just fool around snowboarding. They're not going down Black Diamond Mountains or anything. And she said, I never, ever thought anything about it until now. And this was the first time he said, hey, we're all going to go snowboarding on Saturday. And she said, I had to tie myself to the chair. That's how freaked out I got.
Oh, wow.
And then she looked at me, and she works with kids with trauma. And she said, I have so much more understanding now with my children with trauma and what they go through than I ever did before. Because she goes, I re-experienced my own trauma when my son did nothing but tell me he was going to go do an activity which is completely normal for him.
Wow.
That gets into that whole story that Lorimer tells, right?
Right. I was just thinking that. Yes.
The orchestra and how it just starts to replay. There's a neurotag at work there, right?
Totally. It's almost like a mirror neuron, or something like that.
Completely external, externally driven, environmental, contextual, the whole piece. And I was just, I just told her, I said, I'm so grateful for you for telling me these stories because they have such deep meaning to you. And it's really important. And she said, it's helping me put things together.
Yeah. And for the listeners, just FYI, these questionnaires are easily available online as well. Okay. Yeah. So
here's the
I would urge you to take them. I've taken them. I would urge our listeners to take them themselves. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
And get used to looking at them and thinking about them.
Yes.
So her pain self-efficacy questionnaire, which is just a 2-part question, and it's about the pain that you have right now. It's at present. She feels completely confident that she can work and do some sort of, the thing, household work and all that kind of stuff without any problem, despite the pain. And yes, so it's 0 to 6, and 6, she's completely confident. I can live a normal lifestyle despite the pain. And she put that as a 5, and that's, closer to completely confident. And I said, tell me a little bit about that. And she goes, well, because I can walk and I can get around and I can do everything. And I said, okay. So I left it at that, because that was not congruous to her statement about why she felt like she was dismissed and what she wasn't doing and what's really, really, really bothering her. So those questions that I ask really help bubble up some of this stuff, because sometimes on the questionnaire it doesn't catch it. But when I look at this and I think about, but you're worried that you're not going to be able to exercise like you want to. But when you look down at the Tampa kinesiophobia scale, the first one right off the bat, I'm afraid I might injure myself if I exercise. I strongly agree.
Oh my gosh.
So now this is why I don't like to hang my hat on one questionnaire, because when you pull them all together, you start to get the story. That
so true.
Efficacy is a thing we tell ourselves. I'll be fine no matter what. I'm fine. Right. I'm fine. I'm fine. But when you ask and you dig deeper, like the question about what are you really scared about in this stuff? Let's see. My body is telling me I have something dangerously wrong. I somewhat agree. People aren't taking my medical conditions serious enough. I strongly agree. So we heard that in the story.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
In her story. So, and the accident problem has put my body at risk for the rest of my life. I somewhat agree. Yeah. Now that's matching up to her greatest fears.
Right. And I think also not just looking at the raw score, but looking at each, like you said, putting them all together. Yeah. The meaning in her answers. Yeah.
One thing I've always said about questionnaires and functional outcome measures, when everybody complains about them, it's like, but those things have so much meaning if you go back and look at the question it's asking. Yes. And then triangulate those questions with others that they're asking, that they're either positive or negative on.
Right.
Because it begins to tell you the story. Like you said, it bubbles up in there and tells you the story.
And you'll see a pattern.
Simply being careful that I do not make any unnecessary movements is the safest thing I can do to prevent my pain from worsening. I strongly agree.
Yeah, the fear's off.
Now she's holding herself back and she knows it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And pain tells me that I should that will tell me when to stop exercising so I don't injure myself. And no one should have to exercise when he or she is in pain. So those are the ones that were the most striking. There were other ones that were, a little bit not as high, but very interesting. So this is the tone that we started off with. And so we just spent a little bit of time talking, and really I wanted her to kind of really express her fears. And as we talked, one of the things I asked her about, I said, you find this interesting, your efficacy, you have very strong efficacy, but you're really scared. Like looking at the Tampa kinesia. And I said, remember that story you told me when I asked you what you were worried about? She goes, yes, I see that now. So she was able to kind of start connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And she said,
pieces together.
She goes, I just want to know what's going on. And I want to know that I can, basically, I want to be heard, was what she was saying.
I was wanted
to know what was going on. So I said, okay, let's figure it out. Let's look at this from a whole body point of view. I said, you've had somebody look at your foot enough. We're definitely going to look at it. And what are your, the third question, what do you expect out of PT? And what she expected, she goes, after listening to you and I talk and going through all of this, she goes, I expect to get closer back to the life that I had. Okay.
To the life that she had. Interesting choice of words. Yeah.
I know, had, right? So, so we talked a little bit about strategies, which I wanted to know. I said, so tell me, since this accident, what have you been able to overcome and what have you been able to do well? What's gone well? And she said she goes back to work now that they're, back into the place. She goes, I feel like I'm the just being back around the kids and the environment and everything is just like really good. I'm really enjoying that. And I said, okay, that's great. And she said, I was worried I wasn't going to be able to do that, but I've been able to do it. Yeah, it still hurts, but I can do it. So it's like, okay, so you're already kind of starting to blow some holes in your theories here on some of these questions. And she said, yeah. And I said, so what are you doing movement wise, exercise wise? Like, tell me what's happening now with that. And she said after COVID, she bought herself a Peloton.
Oh,
Once
nice.
COVID hit. So she got a Peloton bike.
Yeah.
And she said, and then since the accident in the summer, she said, so once I got rid of PT, once I got away from PT, and she said, I put myself on the Peloton bike and I just started, just doing the pedaling. And she said, and then I kind of and I knew I couldn't do much, so I just did it really slow. It was a beautiful story of progressive exercise around symptoms. And she goes, and I just kind of paid attention to my symptoms and I didn't over push it, but I noticed that week after week I got better. And then she said, I can actually do a 10 or 15 to almost 20-minute class now. Not a super high level. I don't get up onto my feet yet, but I can increase my resistance appropriately. And I said, that strategy is absolutely fantastic, because that just sounds like a great way for us to kind of attach that to how you're going to progress here. And she said, the reason I think it works is because I'm safe in the Peloton. I said, really? She goes, yeah, because I'm strapped in.
Strapped in, clipped
And
in, yeah, exactly.
And I'm just going in one direction.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I tried to go back to yoga, and in the first 5 minutes, I was so upset, I haven't tried it again. And I said, what upset you? And she goes, it hurt way worse than I thought it was going to. And I said,
yeah, because she's doing a multiple.
Different from the Peloton. And she goes, again, I think I'm safe in the Peloton. And I said, hey, yoga, you feel unsafe? She goes, I'm scared to death doing it. Like, okay.
Yeah, she's not protected by something. Yeah, it's like free form rotational transverse plane motion, whereas the Peloton is very sagittal. Exactly. her hands are on the bike, her feet are clipped in. She's like being
she's got the
protected.
range of motion to do it.
Yes.
The movement feels good. So hooray for her, because she's getting a couple of things done. She's actually moving. She's moving in a safe way, which is the perfect place to start. Start where you're safe. And she's getting her heart rate up, which is incredibly important because she's a lady that's in her early 50s. So all of those are good, but it was very telling to me about the yoga stuff and, and not that I'm not, dissing yoga at all. It's because of her reaction to it. It was like, I really wanted to kind of get to that. So we started, guess where we started? In course, because we had to kind of start and see, then start finding out what she could do and what she felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
So I just started her in standing, and we just took a look at her center of mass. And of course, you can imagine she was shifted way off to the side opposite of her leg.
Yeah.
She was standing on the outside of the ball of the foot, and on the heel of the foot of the ankle that bothered her. Her toes were kind of curling into the floor. There was a little funny thing going on with her hands. And I kind of asked her, I said, tell me how you're feeling now. Tell me if you're feeling, I really want to know, tell me, are you feeling good? You feeling confident? Are you not feeling so confident? What's happening here? Tell me what words you want to use. She goes, safe words are good to use. Okay. I said, let's go with safe then. So, and I said, are you feeling safe right now? And she goes, kind of. I said, what's worrying you? So we talked. She goes, I'm worried about what you're going to ask me to do. And I said, okay, let's bargain with it then as we go. But I kind of gently just picked up her hand and I said, and she goes, oh, my hands. She goes, there's pictures of me from when I was in college running, and they would call me the claw hand girl. She goes, that we get anxious about the race, because she has a history of some anxiousness and some depression. She goes, when I would get anxious about racing and running, my hands would tighten up. And I said, interesting. And she goes, oh, and that's what's happening now. And I said, your toes too. So let's just kind of, can we use that as a measure? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Said, sure, that'll be good. And I'm just focusing on something a little bit different than her fear of what we're going to. And I said, so if you don't want to do anything, we don't have to do it, or I'll help you. You're not alone. So we kind of went into, kind of like doing a bend over. Let's just kind of do something easy that I knew she could do. Yeah, my hamstrings are tight. It feels it here. Bend your knees. Yeah, that feels better.
Right.
What happens if you bend over with your feet close together? It kind of starts to bother her pain is on the inside of her leg. just above the medial malleolus. So if as a PT, for all of you practitioners and healthcare providers out there, the pain tracks right down the perineal nerve, much more posterior and medial. It's nowhere near the scar. It's nowhere near any of the things that she would expect pain to be.
Yeah.
You touch all over my scar. They've massaged my scar. It doesn't change my pain. That's not where my pain is.
Right.
You know, and I don't know why it happens like this. You know, like she goes, I can be sitting there, and all of a sudden my leg will hurt. Like, why is it hurting now? I'm just sitting here. You know, so
she has no history there, right, Susan? No prior injury in the foot before this?
No prior injury, none.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Very little history of any kind of, you know,
like
crazy injuries or anything. No traumas, car accidents, or anything like that. Okay. Which is interesting because then I asked her if she didn't mind trying to do a squat. And she felt comfortable and safe doing about a halfway down squat. She goes, I'm not sure I have the strength to go all the way down. She goes, nobody's asked me to do this before. This is interesting.
No one?
Right. So I said, okay, so how are you picking up your shoes? So she does a partial squat, bend over to pick up her shoes. Good for her. So we grabbed a hold of the doorknobs.
Yep.
And kind of brought her feet a little bit further apart. And I said, just play with it. Hold on, because I'm thinking Peloton bike, safe, feet on the floor, hands off the doorknob.
Yep.
And I said, just play with it and just kind of go down and up a little bit. And she got a little further down. It was making her a little nervous, but the pain wasn't coming on. She was like, this isn't bad. I think I could work on this. I said, okay, that's good. I just kind of wanted to see what would happen for you here. And, you know, she stayed kind of even. So then we went back to just standing, and I said, okay, so now tell me where you are on your feet. Just from doing the bend overs and kind of the partial squats and stuff, she noticed she was more even on her feet. And I said, how's the symptoms? Well, they haven't increased. And I said, what happens if we just go all the way over towards your, you know, the injured foot? And she said, oh, right there, it starts to bother me. So then we kind of just started playing that little game, like how far can you go? Find the edge, that stuff that I love, like Roy Blinkenstein does, find the edge of where you can move comfortably. And let's just explore that movement and all the boundaries around it. So we did all that in standing. And she goes, this is something I can do at work, because as the kids come in and we do all this stuff, I'm kind of shifting back and forth. And now I can, like, she goes, I think I'm going to have to just quit ignoring this and start being more mindful of it. Our words, not mine. I love it when you get people who are really self-aware. With somebody else, I might be coaching them on the mindfulness of this. Like, don't put up symptoms. Let's try to be a little bit more mindful and kind of go where it feels better. You know, let's just bring this down a little bit.
And she probably was doing all that stuff at work anyway, just not realizing it because she was
she was ignoring it. She was like, I'm completely, like, I don't want to think about it. Like, I don't even want to know it's there. And it's like, you know, like, I remember that story by David Butler, you know, you got her to fall in love with her foot again.
Right.
You know, crazy
exactly.
voice. And it's just like, okay, so we did some of that. We did some weight shifting, and then I just asked her to twist, and it was so interesting because she went at I can't even describe how slow the motion was. It was like, can humans even move this slow and still move?
Wow.
I mean, it was just like, you can go a little faster. And she goes, okay. And she just like kept going slow. So I just kind of got her comfortable. I said, drop your hands. Let's do a little, you know, back and forth. Let's do some stuff.
Yeah.
And I got her to start to swing a little bit freer.
Like a standing body twist, you're talking.
Finally, you know, but I said, can you turn your eyes and bring your head with you? Because she was leaving her eyes behind. She goes, that makes me feel like I'm going to fall over.
So you're doing a basic standing body twist for the listeners, right? Just stand back and forth.
Basic, yeah. Feet planted,
Got it.
twisting around, looking behind you.
And she's afraid to move on.
She started to feel unsteady. And that was, she goes, that's what I'm afraid of right there. That right there is, I don't think I can catch myself if I started to fall, or it would hurt really bad. I mean, she really kind of like started unloading a lot of emotions at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder she does yoga. Jesus.
That makes a lot of sense, you know?
Yeah.
So how about we get this kind of going in an easier way? You know, I don't want you to feel afraid, but what can we do to make this feel safer for you? So, you know, she goes, so I think I can do it if I can go slow. And I said, okay, then let's go slow. And I just let her do it a few more times. We went back to regular stance, and I said, how does it feel on your feet? It's better, you know, because she was like more involved with what was going on in her head. I said, are you having the symptoms in your leg? A little bit, but not like I thought I would. And it's like, okay. And she goes, I think it's because we're being safe. And I said, well, that's good. We can get a little bit more
Mm,
risky as you feel more confident.
yeah.
So we did do the one-legged stance, and I did stand in front of her and let her put her hands on my hands to hold, so
Mm.
that she would have, again, that kind of,
The
boundary that she
tactile
really wanted.
feedback. Yeah. Yeah.
Peloton bike gave her. And she didn't like it, but she was able to do it. And then she realized, she goes, you know what? I can stand on my foot that had the problem much easier than I can stand on the other one, because I kind of started playing the cylinder game. You're inside a cylinder, so you can't, so you can't switch, you can't sway over like pelvic, sway.
Mm-hmm.
Put her hands on the wall, her fingertips on the wall, because that keeps you from rotating your trunk, so your fingertips on the wall, you're standing there, and just have them lift one foot up. And
Yes.
she's so used to being on the other side of her uninjured leg, like way over on the other side of her uninjured leg, that she could not stand on her uninjured leg without swaying to that side. She
It would
literally
be.
couldn't figure it out.
That's interesting. It would be interesting to see what she looks like on the bike.
Uh-huh.
In a seated position, if she's kind of like,
Ask her to take
exactly. Yeah, I would totally would. I'd have a field day with that one.
take pictures. You'd be so proud of me.
You did. Oh, fantastic.
I did. I asked her. I said, take pictures, please. Okay.
Yes.
So anyway, so we kind of started working with that, and then we talked a little bit about, part of the lack of confidence is, the lack of, just sometimes your brain's been ignoring this for a while. You've been cognitively ignoring it, but you're getting better. Just the more that we're doing it, you're getting better. So the name of the game is that this is probably some sort of really deep protective response that has been laid down. And, and I said, and you have a lot of distrust and fear around this. Her words, always her words.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just deepens that protective response. And sometimes when we have a protective response, it's all or nothing. So, the clawing of the hands, the clawing of the toes, the stiffening of the leg,
Mm-hmm.
when it's asked to do something. I said, so we kind of, the analogy I pulled up with was, it's the difference of, being a willow tree or a vase in the face of a wind. What happens to the willow tree? She goes, oh, the willow tree bends and moves and twists and turns. Yes. What happens to the vase? It falls over.
Falls over.
Yeah. And
I
I
like
said,
that analogy.
what we want to do is she goes, I need to stop being a vase. And I said, well, yes, that's okay. I said, how can we make the vase a little bit more supple?
More options for movement.
Yeah, we started working on those things and talking about it and kind of, doing that. And so here's how we ended up. She ended up with the following exercises. Bend overs to allow the knees to bend, because it just felt good, so that became kind of a reset exercise that she could do. Felt good. It helped her kind of like, loosen things up. She could relax her hands. She did a little shake out of her head and stuff. And she really liked that. Plus it made her head move in space, which I'm kind of after now.
Yeah.
Exercise with the bike and her hands on the bike being really still. Because yoga was no bueno, right?
Right. Should that fixed gaze and kind of the Peloton.
And then standing weight shift, being curious to look in all directions without the increase of symptoms. It's going to help your brain change and figure out and get you out of that protective posture. So we could kind of link it back to those little things. And then she was using rotation with her eyes and her head in both directions. And I asked her, I said, I want you to take a picture of yourself on the bike. And then we sat down and we went over a couple of things nutritionally to kind of help her heal, looking at maybe introducing a little bit of collagen to her system for bone healing. She's low on vitamin D, she said. She goes, my vitamin D levels are low. So we talked about vitamin D3 with K2 to bind that, to help with the bone. But you can look at, she wants those bones to heal.
Yeah. What collagen supplement?
I did talk to her about doing a collagen like a bone broth. It's like
bone broth.
A way to get it in. Kettle & Fire is my favorite brand because they've got so many different flavors of it.
Yeah.
And you can get it at the grocery store. I'm not cooking bone broth. I don't have time in my day.
Oh my gosh. What's it called again? Kettle & Fire, you said?
Yeah, Kettle & Fire.
Got it.
That's a great brand. And then, but then the final thing we did was we needed to, I needed to help her deal with this neurotag, this neuromatrix.
Yeah.
Protective response, and this whole idea of her words, ignoring the foot, ignoring, not paying attention to the pain, wanting it to go away, not having confidence that it'll go away, feeling unsafe unless she's locked in, all started speaking about midline issues to me. And then when I saw her that she could not twist,
Mm-mm.
and even just standing and weight shifting with her hands, like doing the little clawy thing,
Mm-hmm.
became really kind of like, okay. So we sat down and I pulled out the recognized feet, because
Great.
the person who I really think, based on their inventory, based on her story, based on her physical manifestation, emerging symptoms, and how she moves, and the fear that's in there, is that graded motor imagery might be a really nice way to go with her.
Yeah.
And so the first part of that, of course, is the right left laterality. Loss
Yeah.
of midline, the brain smudging on the left side. On the side, it's not the left side, it's her other foot. But anyway, the brain smudging on the side, we
Or
talked
involved side.
about
Yeah.
that. I drew some brain pictures and talked about how that happens and why the story of her son comes into the ear, hits the neurotag, and the neurotag hits the emotion, the limbic system, and boom, full on
Boom.
protective
Yep.
response, freak out, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So she could really get the story and understand what we were trying to do.
Did she have actually anything still lingering in her foot locally at all?
I went and I did. So thank you for asking that, because everybody's going, did you even look at her freaking foot? Yeah, I did. I promise I did. We did. She had great range of motion. She definitely is lacking like full dorsiflexion, because she's not getting great splay of her tib fib, because there's screws in there.
Yes.
But her range of motion is good. Her midfoot looks really nice. Her toes have good motion. When she's like relaxed and open, if she brings in the protective response, you can see that it stiffens on the floor.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more of a rigid foot instead of a loosey goosey foot.
Right.
With a little bit of an arch, like the arch is maintained. In fact, the arch is actually elevated a little bit.
Yes.
Allow herself to drop into pronation, and a rotation of the tibia. Which was reflected greatly with that rotational part, but I never looked at her feet in the rotation part as much until the second time, when we were just doing it as an exercise, because she was not moving her head and eyes. And that was just like, oh my goodness, what's the driver? Is it here or is it here? And as soon as I got her head and eyes to move better, the foot and the ankle started moving better. So this is
and a lot
the main driver may have been the foot for sure. I mean, look at that injury.
of course, post-operatively, yes.
The secondary one is not even like, we talk about the head or the neck. I would have to say it's head, neck, but mainly driven by a balance reaction, kind of whole fear-based thing too.
Yes.
So that's the big part that's holding her back.
Yeah, so it's like a neurally driven issue with regards to tone and joint position sense and things like that, and it was really neurally driven. Yeah.
And the protective response is so high she can't pay attention to any proprioception that may be coming in.
Right. Yeah.
Of it too, that the sensations that are coming from that part of her body are being attached to these negative fear-based emotions.
Yeah.
We went through the Recognize app, and I told her, I said, I want you to slow it way down as far as time. And I want you to only work 5 minutes at a time, because this is going to be fatiguing. You'll be surprised. And of course, they all look at it and go, oh, that's easy. And we kind of played it a little bit. And so I saw her again the next time. And she went home with all of that, and she came back, and this is amazing story. How are you doing? I have been doing so good. I couldn't even believe it. In fact, I looked at my husband on Thursday and I said to him, I really think I'm better. I just believe it, And she was doing all the weight shifting things and everything. She goes, and that app, that whatever foot recognized app thing, she goes, that was so hard. Oh my gosh. I had no idea. I couldn't do it. And then but now she's up to like the third or fourth level.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I can do it. I can getting better and better. And then she said, and then I saw the foot in the cast.
Oh gosh.
When you get into context, they have the foot
that's
twisted, or it's in a cast. Or
oh my God. What did she hyperventilate?
That was really hard. And I had to kind of back down from that a little bit.
Yes.
And then she goes, and then it reminded me of the story of my son who's going, snowboarding, like, oh, this is where that, that's that whole piece. And
Yes.
then she goes, and then I didn't feel so good on Saturday and Sunday. And I said, so, well, tell me about that. I just kind of sat back and just waited for her to tell the story.
Yeah.
I got my first vaccine on Friday.
Mm.
And Saturday, she goes, my arm was sore. I didn't feel bad, but she goes, I was just out of it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my energy was destroyed. I was low and I had a lot of pain.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And the next day it was a little better. And this was Monday. By today, which was yesterday, by today, I am feeling, I'm on the upward swing.
Wow.
And
Good for
I'm
her.
wondering if the vaccine, because they talk a lot about the COVID being a little bit kind of acting like a little bit of a neurotoxin. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
brain and
Inflammatory.
yeah, it's because I'm just wondering if I had kind of an immune inflamed response, and could that make my pain worse?
Totally.
Of course, and I just didn't want to run
Yeah.
over with her. I wanted her to experience, kind of
Yeah.
have her come to the conclusion. And I said, well, what do you think? Well, yeah, of course, if it's a bit inflammatory, that would make sense if this nerve is, kind of sensitive.
Yes.
That would make, she goes,
Yes.
well, this is another reason. She goes, so that's why other things that I do in my life can make this worse. It doesn't just have to be movement. It's because my nerves are really sensitive.
Yeah. Yay. Hallelujah.
And I'm not telling the story, everybody, to say, hey, Susie's so great. What I'm trying to say is that, wow, when you can get in and really hear these stories, they're fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
They heal themselves with these stories.
Yeah, and I think it's so important with these questionnaires too. Even if you don't want to send all of them out, just pick a few to get started, because it'll save you time, right? It'll make you much more efficient, and you'll get the buy-in, And she actually, what's the word? She totally she could write she rewrote her story. She rewrote her entire narrative based on those at the end when you just mentioned that. So she rewrote her story. So she had a do-over.
So we did this is the second time we did some neural gliding kinds of things.
Yeah.
With her foot and leg, the bend overs were one. That's why I did bend overs, because it's a neural glide, right?
Yes. Yes.
We just did it, with the strap and some fun things that she wanted to do and explore. We explored for movements and things to gain confidence, both, doing some stuff laying down, but some stuff sitting and standing, because I want her up and standing and moving and, things like that.
Yep.
And my plan is for her as I go forward is to get her going on the Clock Yourself app.
Oh, yes, of course.
Because she's going to be able to turn it down. She's going to be able to go at her speed. It's going to teach her body to react, her brain to react again.
Yeah.
And it's going to do it in a safe way. So she's going to be able to herself progress herself up and do it. And when I was talking to her about the app, I said, next week we'll introduce this, because her goal this week is to stand on the Peloton.
Yes, that's great.
Pictures of it, but she was sitting, and she goes, I just didn't have the courage to stand yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you like that to be kind of a goal? Like just standing on there and sitting down, not doing a class, just where would you feel safest? And she goes, oh, I definitely think it's time for me to start standing on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And okay, so take a couple of pictures.
Yeah.
She said sitting, what ended up happening, Erica, which you love, is that sitting, she showed me the 3 or 4 pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that she not only when she on the one side she teetered over, she was teetering back and forth on both. She noticed it herself and raised her seat up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
She couldn't teeter side to side anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
I don't know if that gave her more confidence, but she's figuring it out on her own. See, that's the thing. All I did was take a picture.
Yeah, it's so funny with the
see what you look like on it, especially with the standing stuff. Oh yeah, that'd be really cool. Okay, I mean, yeah.
Especially because she's so committed now, and with the Clock Yourself, the Clock Me, I have a patient I have him doing it in a different language. Like he speaks the language, and so it takes his focus off the movement, and then on the language he understands, like the numbers 6, 5.
And they can learn another language. They can actually learn at least 12 in another language, and that really takes them out of that. They have to really get better at the reactionary skills.
Yeah.
By the
Yeah.
time they figure out the language and what it means, they should have already been there.
Yeah. You know, exactly. So I love this. What a great story.
It is. It's a wonderful story.
Yeah. She
And I'm
rewrote her
looking forward
story.
to getting her on those stairs and on those uneven surfaces and, out on those trails.
Mm-hmm.
There's hiking poles in her future. Just
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
those yet. So she's got a lot of fun things to discover and to kind of
Yeah.
work on. And so she's also, her goal besides standing on the Peloton is she's going to sit down. We're starting a little graded motor imagery now.
Mm.
And she's going to imagine a yoga class, and she's going to pick out 3 things in that yoga class that scare her so we can unpack them together.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish that they would do those cards for like, we were talking before before we recorded this, like for things that scare people, like for me, teacup rides, or or like yoga, and like create little images like that. I mean, we can all do those ourselves, but those
Yeah, we
cards
could
are
probably
great.
do that. That'd be a great project.
Yeah,
There's some of you out there.
exactly.
Like, tell me about what
Cool.
that scares you, or maybe just even one-legged stance, any of those things.
You know what? It'd be interesting, Susan. Before we hop off,
Oh,
put a
so
yeah,
good.
put a heart rate monitor on somebody, and then have them watch something, and just see what ramps. That'd be so cool. That'd be so interesting to do. It really would. And you would see their heart rate response. I mean, we could go on and on about another podcast on heart rate.
All over the world doing this right now, which is really,
Yeah.
really good, because the stuff on heart rate variability is becoming kind of more and more prevalent, and looking at what that means.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on podcast number 91. Bye.